Welcome to Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Two gals on the prowl for enlightenment, sex, and all things holy. Holy Fuck. Each week, beauty alchemist and transformational coach and speaker, Katherine McClelland, and spiritual healer and life coach, Krista Kim, discuss navigating spiritual consciousness in a real human body. Stumbling through dating, relationships, and everyday life, all while maintaining a fucking sense of humor.
Okay. Please. Hey, everybody, this is Krista.
And this is Katherine. Welcome to our show today.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Okay, sisters, we got some good stuff today, but first we just want to check in, say hi. How are you, Krista?
Oh my gosh. How am I? I'm a little nervous, but that might be for another episode. Yeah, I got a date tonight. Although I didn't think it was a date, but now all of a sudden I'm realizing it's a date. So I think that's where the nerves are coming from. So
awesome. That sounds like fun. Is there anything else you want to tell us about that date?
I think what I'm going to do is hold and wait until the date actually happens. And then I'll probably have a nice big juicy story to tell you next week.
All right.
Something to look forward to.
If it shows up in our space, you let us know today, okay?
Okay. I think we can just use it as a little teaser, a little bait for next week's episode of like, what's Krista up to? Or how was her date?
What happened on Krista's date?
Yes.
That's a good teaser. Speaking of teasers, is that how you intend to behave on this date?
I'm thinking I better not. I'm getting the sense that I might need to just kind of play it cool and be more on the friendly level. But who knows? Who knows? We'll see.
I know I can trust you to be authentic.
Yes, you can trust me. I didn't know where you're going that with I think I can trust you. Yes, you can trust me to be authentic. Can I trust myself to not get myself into trouble? We'll see. A little trouble would be okay.
A little trouble would be okay. Well, let's find out what that means next week, right?
Okay, deal.
Yeah, so Krista's got a date. I don't.
Okay.
But I have had some lovely connection time with a man or two in my life, which has been good.
Good.
I've also had some intense connection time.
How so?
We're going to be talking about soon. It's just, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about before?
No, I want to hear what the intense thing is.
Well, you are going to hear because we're going to talk about it today.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Vagina. I'll just say it right now. Vagina.
Okay, vagina. Now we got it out. It's about my vagina.
Yay!
Yay! I was going to call it my vajayjay, but Krista outed me. So I'm not calling it that anymore. We're calling it vagina.
Vagina JJ.
I prefer yoni.
Yoni. Yeah, that's a nice one too.
I have a friend that used to call it her biscuit.
That just makes me think that she serves it with a side of gravy, though.
Yeah, baby.
And then it probably speaks in a Southern accent. It's a redneck yoni.
See who can tell who's from Virginia.
Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah, because I didn't go there when she said biscuit.
Yeah,
I got way different images than gravy. I got butter.
You got butter? Yeah, well, my yoni has lost its Southern accent over the 20-some years I've lived in California. So,
alrighty.
So what's up, vagina?
Well, I was just thinking before we move on, if our team of people out here in the world want to tell us what all their nicknames for their vaginas are, since they probably don't call them that, it would be a pretty funny show to be able to read all the names that people have for their vaginas, wouldn't it?
I'm down with that.
Good. Yeah. So you guys, you gals, you guys, let us know what you call down there.
Down there.
Down there. What do you call it? Yeah. So were you going to ask me a question, Krista?
No, I was just, when you said, we want to know what you call it down there, I thought for a moment you were asking me, like, and I was like, I don't know. What do I call it? And so that was a thinking face that you saw. And I just, I guess I'm really just partial to pussy. I don't know. Just going to keep it simple.
Yeah, that's simple. Yeah. Hey, baby.
That's right.
Right straight to the subject at hand. Okay. Well, since we're there, shall we?
We shall. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun. So this is Catherine's voice telling you that Catherine's pussy, a.k.a.
Why did you choke it down? You like barely could say that word. Maybe she's pussy.
No, it was, I was trying to find which one I wanted to go first. So I was like, yoni, vagina, vajayjay, biscuit,
pussy,
pussy. Anyway, we're having a little chat about all those things and their health issues when sometimes we have health issues with some of these things. So I have been on a little health journey this week. Yeah.
So I can tell it's a little, I can just see it on your face. It's a little challenging to enter into this conversation.
Yes. And my eyebrows are up by my hairline and I'm biting my lip and I'm looking a little funny, making a little face. But I am committed to authenticity and women's health and women's bodies. And as you know, enlightenment, sex, and everything holy, which is including all the parts of our body in our lives. So that's why we started with all the names and the real name of these beautiful parts of our bodies. But yeah, I've got some excitement. So shall I?
Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip the Band-Aid off. Oh, speaking of ripping the Band-Aid off, okay, this is a good place to start. So 3 weeks ago, yours truly had a bikini wax. Now, I just need you to know I've had bikini waxes forever. I can't actually count the years, right? And in this particular case, I had a little mishap in which the labia, to use the right word, pussy, were burned. Yay! Ouch. Oh my God. Did that hurt? Anyway, I made it work.
So we can really call you Hot Lips?
Yeah. Awesome, Krista.
Hot Lips. That's from MASH.
That's what's got to go, is the lips on the logo. It has to be there. I just had that thought. Anyway, back to the story. So I have had some interactions with this area of my body quite a bit the last couple of weeks. And what's been interesting more than just the physical aspect of what's happening is all of the other layers of what's happened in this process. So I'm just going to bring you up to the moment of chaos. And then I'm going to have Krista talk to you a little bit about what she provided for me. So I have been going through a process where I've been releasing trauma in my life and releasing sexual trauma. I have, unfortunately, had plenty of Me Too incidences in my very early and middle childhood and early adulthood. I'm chosen to put an end to them about that. I had to change big things in my life. But anyway, not to go into the details today. Who knows if we ever will. But today, it just suffice it to say that I was working on those issues through trauma release and doing body, mind, heart, and soul therapy. And as I started to get really clear and as I started to really release a lot of this stuff, my body started bringing a whole bunch of stuff to the surface. Now, at first, when that was happening, I wasn't necessarily clear that's what happened. But I had one very big session where I really cleared a whole bunch of stuff and karmic. And we talked about Carolyn Mace last week and what she says about your chakras and all that kind of stuff. I cleared a whole bunch of stuff and I got really free of the tightness I felt about all of the holding me down kind of stuff that was going on with my family when I was little. So first I did that. Then first I had that little burning incident. Mm-hmm. Then I had this big clearing that was sort of based on the burning. And then I had all of this stuff show up like it was coming to the surface to be cleared. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty intense. And so I called Krista pretty much beside myself.
Yeah.
About how all this stuff could be showing up at one time. And she jumped in really powerfully with one of the things that's amazing about her is that she does that. And you're going to get to see what she did. Go, girl.
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm really impressed with you for stepping into your authenticity and coming forward with this story because it is personal and it is about your vagina. And we are in relationship with men and looking for boyfriends, and we have children, and now we're going to talk about our vaginas and how they can get sick and, you know, all the different stuff that go around them. And so, yeah, I just didn't want that to be lost. Like, I know that that's a very vulnerable space to step into. And I think for our audience, it would be nice to give just a little background on, like, when you say that you did some clearing. I think there's some people who are going to understand what you're talking about, but there's going to be others that are going to go like, what does that mean? So can you give a little bit more, not that you have to tell me your personal journey through it, but if you can give a little bit more concrete information just to explain it.
Yeah. So I work with a person who's a body worker and a trauma specialist. And what I do is I work these things out through all of the systems of my body. So body, mind, heart, and soul. And so sometimes I cry really hard and I don't actually know what I'm doing. I just start the process of talking about whatever's coming to the surface. And he's really skilled and he facilitates me in that. And so what I mean is that I leave stuff behind when I leave his office. So I have healing experiences that let me let go of my opinions and, you know, my past history so that I'm not living my past anymore. And that's why it felt so cool that whatever I had let go of in some realms came out to be let go in the physical realm. Like, please go through this experience and get rid of all this stuff that's been hiding. So it's my first chakra, which we call the root chakra. So it's that, but it's also, it's hiding in my sexual organs. All of the, for lack of a better word, Me Too stuff that's been.
Yeah, it's like stored energy in that part of your body. Yeah.
And it's pulling on my general health and also just who I am as being, you know, kind of pulled down into that first chakra.
And so you and I, go ahead.
No, I just said, so now I'm paying attention. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, because you and I, and what we do a lot of study around is when there are physical ailments, aches and pains and diagnoses and all of that stuff in the body, we are just so fascinated by what is trying to be known to us. Like, what is our body trying to say to us? We look at physical ailments as our body's language. It's how it talks to us. And it's, so by the time disease gets really big, it's usually our body like screaming at us by that point, like, wake up. And so I would venture to guess that over the years, maybe your body has whispered to you.
Yes.
With smaller things that have happened in the vagina area. And that maybe over the years, it's had to amp up a little bit. And it's kind of become more and more over the last couple weeks, even.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, Krista, because I think maybe what's true is that I've been clearing it for years, slowly through. I've had breast lumps that have come back. I've made big changes. So once I made big changes in my life between 2 testing periods. Should I tell this story? Because it's kind of cool.
Okay.
I will.
I don't know if I know what story you're talking about, but tell it.
Okay. So I was in the middle of a big breakup in my life, change of my life completely. I had just been diagnosed. I had a vaginal irregular pap. I had a cervical irregular pap, and I had a uterine, a cervical, and a breast lump. And I went into the period of time when this relationship was breaking up. And he actually moved out in this period of time while I was scheduling all of these surgeries to biopsy all this stuff because everything was irregular. About 3 weeks after he moved out, all those surgeries happened, and they were all clear. And so none of them left any residual effects. And it really felt like having made that bold move to actually step up, let that relationship complete, let it go, and then come back to myself and really be empowered to say, this isn't the right one for me for all the reasons that I was sad to let it go.
Right.
And then let my body heal. And my body was just like, what are you talking about? Doctor was like, there is nothing here. And there was nothing in the lump. There was nothing anywhere. So I was very grateful. And I do feel like I dodged a bullet. So this feels like slightly different. This time it feels like it's really cleansing out. Like it's just like, come on, let's get rid of this for the last time.
Last time. Yeah, that's what I was hearing. Last time I'm going to do this.
These little bacteria, like, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
But now it's coming like guns a-blazing. It feels like.
It is coming like guns a-blazing. We got a lot going on, little Yoni, this week.
Yeah. When you called me, when you found out all this new information with what was going on, you called me, and what I was really hearing from you is you're very caught up in the story, which of course we all do. And whenever we get these calls from doctors that say this is what the test results say, and we get scared because the language is big and they don't necessarily have all the answers yet, but they're using big language that makes it terrifying.
Yeah, like oncologist.
Yes.
3 words in the same sentence: biopsy, oncologist, and cancer.
Mm-hmm.
In one sentence.
So when you called me, it was like, and then this doctor said this, and then this happened, and that nurse said this, and I can't believe she acted like that. And now I have to call this person and tell them that I have this wrong with me. And it was like this. It was manic, but it was very human. It was the human reaction to when you get a diagnosis. And I think the moment that our conversation changed is when I kind of just said to you, like, okay, we're not going to buy into the story that any of that is true. We're going to stop that right now. Yes. Okay. There's these symptoms, and let's get to the bottom of what is your body trying to say to you. And it was a moment of just really slowing down the conversation and returning to what we know to be true.
Yeah, and Krista, I just want to interrupt because over here in my body, I was definitely adrenalized and freaking out. And I'd had a person working with me who had that kind of energy. So I got really scared. I didn't have somebody who was measured and talking to me about what the possibilities. So your response to me was so powerful. And it just it gave me the space to just take a deep breath and say, yeah, right. I'm remembering who I am. I'm remembering that I believe in this amazing universe and that this is my body talking to me, not giving me a death sentence.
Yes.
Just what it's trying to say. Like, hello, pay attention to me, not hello, I'm going to kill you, which is what it felt like.
Yeah. One of the books that I went to, because it's like my go-to guide for spiritual guidance, is Louise Hay's book, Heal Your Body. I think that's what it's called. I should have known that. But I love that book because you can look up what the medical condition is that you're experiencing, and then it will tell you kind of some key words or emotions to think about, just to kind of like trigger dialogue around the disease or the diagnosis. And so one of the pages, you obviously had so much going on down there that we had to do a combination of different symptoms. And it's not that we're saying like, oh, this book is going to perfectly identify what your body's trying to tell you. It's just a guideline. And so I would read certain passages to you that would say things like, when you have, say a venereal disease, it would say something like a mass belief in sexual guilt and the need for punishment, public shame, belief in a punishing God, rejection of the genitals. So we kind of started there in our conversation with like, whoa, those are some pretty big fucking words. And some of the words you're like, nope, not me. And other words you were like, yes. So I don't know if you want to talk to that at all, or if there were certain words.
There was one in particular that jumped out at me that had to do with what I interpreted was rage. And it was like subjugation rage and having felt suppressed by inappropriate sexuality my whole life, starting from very young. And I really connected with the rage that was associated with that. And it was such a deep breath in for me. And I could really feel that it didn't feel like any kind of anger. It was outside of the field of anger. It was like a being that had been suppressed, which is such a thing you should never do. Like, it was a spiritual thing where a being should never be suppressed like that. Mm-hmm. And the only response that being could possibly have is rage. Like, just, I have to blow the top off this thing in order to get myself back. That's what it felt like. So when you said that one, it was like, holy moly. And I believe there was one that had to do with humiliation, right?
Let's see.
Yeah, because it was hidden. So for me, all of these things are inside and they're internal and no one can see them or suspect they're there. Yet they can be given to you. And so it's a tricky thing, but my body tends to express inside where you can't see it because I had such a history with humiliation and rage together. It came out this way.
I think the other one that we looked at was little expressions of hate and belief in ugliness. And we latched onto the ugliness because, as we've said before in past podcasts, is that you're really into beauty and making the world beautiful. And you can't stand when someone thinks that they're ugly and that they don't see their own beauty. And yet there is this little piece of perceived ugliness inside of you.
Yeah, that was actually super. Thank you, Krista, for reminding me, because that was actually took us on a pretty deep ride, because I wasn't ready to look at the fact that there was something that was ugly, that I was self-rejecting, right? That's what the point of that was, is that I was seeing it as ugly and then seeing it as self-rejection. So that was a really, really big one for me.
And almost like buying into the whole concept of beauty. It was like the ugliness is the shadow side of that. So almost like spiritual bypass in a way, like, oh, if I just come over here and concentrating on all the beautiful things in the world, and I'm beautiful, my body's beautiful, and your body's beautiful, and beauty and flowers. And it's like bypassing over the ugliness, the hidden ugliness.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that, Krista, because if anybody were to ever go on my Facebook page, they would notice that it's all about love and God and beauty and light and passion and heart and how much I love people and how much I don't love when people don't love themselves and all that kind of stuff. So this idea of ugliness really struck me really hard.
I might have a challenge for you.
Oh, what's that?
Can you find something that you perceive to be gross and then post it on your Facebook page and like with the challenge of like, can you find the beauty in this? I mean, like, we know your favorite thing is shit. And so it's like, you know, that's something that we perceive as ugly and gross and disgusting, blah, blah, blah. But can you find the beauty in that?
You know, I can do a lot of spiritual stuff with that. Like I can be like, oh, it's the compost for the future of the earth and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But honestly, looking right at quote unquote ugliness is a huge challenge for me.
Mm-hmm. And which would mean that that's probably where some of your spiritual work still lies.
Yes. Yes. So I can look at people who are suffering in some ways. I can look at all sorts of things. But when someone's really mean to someone else, when someone's really like does something that just feels like it doesn't have humanity in it, to me, that's like the ugliest thing. I don't love like ugly mountains that were just burned down by fire in the last few months. I didn't love any of that too. That really struck me how hard that was for me to be in the space of ugliness. Mm-hmm. And how then thinking of myself, I have to own that there are parts of me that I think are ugly. And anything that's sick and not well inside me, I see as ugly.
Right. And so the healing opportunity is when you can look at the things in which you find ugly and disturbing and apply love to it.
Absolutely. And so what I had to know in that moment was there was some self-rejection going on around what was going on in my body. And that was part of the panic was, oh my God, you know, this is ugly and it's happening inside my body. And I don't mean, you know, physically ugly. I can't see it. Nobody can see it. But I mean ugly like gross or, you know, like, ready? Shit's ugly, you know, like that kind of thing. So anyway, that was what led me on a very interesting, really beautiful journey that I took after Krista hung up the phone with me and finished telling me all these beautiful things. So I just want to check in with Krista because she was on the other side of that conversation. So I'm imagining she might have another couple of things to say about that.
Well, I think that what's interesting about what we're sharing is that we're showing people kind of a process that they can use on themselves anytime that some type of body ache or broken arm or infection or sickness or diagnosis comes in their life. We're just giving them another opportunity to look at it from a different perspective. So we're not saying don't go to doctors, don't get treated or take the medicines that you feel called to take. We're not saying that at all. What we are saying is that with Katherine having so many physical ailments in the vagina, it's for so long, many different things coming up. It's a long-standing pattern for her that is needing to be dealt with. Like, I've never had anything in that area, but I've also never had anything that I would deem sexual trauma. So I find that very fascinating. But I've had other things physically that have happened to me, right? That have led me in other directions of healing.
To your own healing through this same process, right?
Right. And so what we're trying to show is that when a physical dis-ease comes up in the body, it's such a great opportunity for anyone to dive deeper into it. And it can look as simple as like laying in your bed and asking the broken arm what it was trying to tell you, or the aching knee. What is it that you're trying to express to me? What can I do different? What is going on? How can I love you more? And also you talk gently to it. Hi, knee, thank you so much for this pain. I see that you're trying to tell me something. I just want you to know I'm here and I'm listening and I'm available to hear whatever it is that you want to say. And it's like sitting in silence until something comes forward. And maybe nothing comes forward that day, but maybe like 3 days later, out of the blue, you get this big aha moment of like, oh, that's what my knee is trying to say. It's like, maybe I need to kick my boyfriend out of the house or whatever. And then, you and I had the dialogue around all the different words around the vagina, but it didn't end just there.
No.
You talked it out with me, but then we had the discussion of like, okay, now what are your next steps? What are the key elements from our dialogue that you feel like you really need to look further at? I know you very well, and I know you do a lot of bedtime intentions. So maybe you want to talk about if you did any of those that night. I can't remember the other kind of quote unquote homework steps I gave you, but it was definitely like a couple of different things that, hey, let's do this, let's do that, and look at that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what they were either, Krista, but they were all invitations to drive myself within. I think one of the intentions that we set together was that that I would allow the healing to happen while I was sleeping, that I didn't need to go through any big process with the healing. I didn't need it to be a big, it was very scary the first night when they gave me the first level of information, because they were using the word cancer and biopsy and all sorts of things that were very uncomfortable to hear. And I was, with Krista's coaching, then able to really settle into this place of like, what's true about me is I'm already whole and I'm already a radiant, beautiful light. And I'm going to stick with I'm a radiant, beautiful light and I'm whole, and keep that image. And we're going to have to mention Joe Dispenza's book again, because that's how that ability to be supernatural comes in. You bring in all of your energy and all of your loving and your passion into the space of creation, and you create with the whole universe what's going to be true for you. So I didn't want that to be true. I didn't want to be having biopsies and have really scary stuff happening. But I just decided, instead of focusing on worrying, because, worrying is a way of praying for what you don't want.
Right.
I focused on what I do want, which is radiant, light-filled body, healed, whole, healthy, and already perfect. So I started getting all these images downloading to me all night long. And I got one of the most beautiful ones I had was a diamond that was hanging into my vagina. And it was just lightly prisming all the light around and healing that space. Mm-hmm. And I've been using it since then. And then 2 days later, when I went to the other doctor to have a second opinion, all of the scary stuff was no longer obvious. And why? There, in her opinion, was no need to be scared, no need to be worried about a biopsy, no need to be worried about cancer. We have to take care of sort of this level of what's coming to the surface. And I definitely don't want them to be pushing it down. Mm-hmm. Rather, I want it to clear. So I'm paying attention now to that.
And
so I'm still working with the realm of clearing while I'm taking into account my doctor's ideas about what needs to happen with the medicine.
Right. So I love this. It's like one day you're having this diagnosis with like all of these terrifying symptoms and worst case scenarios. And, then you go and you do your spiritual work around it. you start the clearing, you really change your frame of mind, not buying into the disease, but really holding the vision that you're whole, perfect, beautiful in your divine. You really took your time to just say, that's the lane I'm going to stay in. And went from that point to 2 days later, when you have a second appointment with a different doctor, that doctor walked in, I think, and was just like, here's the medicine we're going to book you for surgery. Or I don't know. They were already ready to like take you to the next level. And you were like, no, check me out. And she checks you out and she's like, whoa, like, that's not what I was expecting to see. Like in her mind, she was expecting like a catastrophe down there. And she was like, I mean, I really wish you'd have told her that, yeah, I did all my spiritual work around this. But because I probably in the doctor's mind, she's thinking, oh, then whoever did the first test was just wrong. Or I don't know. They probably chalked it up to like human error of some sort.
Right.
But we know the truth. We know that because you did your work and you listened to your body and you made a choice not to go down that route.
Yeah.
It healed.
Yeah. And here's a couple of other things that happened too. And I appreciate you saying that, because one of the other things that happened is that, I'm a proponent for, body, mind, heart, and soul. Every piece of us is us and every piece is holy. And so what happened was I immediately, like not 10 days later, not 5 days after I went to the doctor, immediately changed everything in my life. So I went to bed early that night. I didn't eat anything that had any sugar in it. I'm very clear sugar is not good for me. And I know if there's an oncology event around the corner, you should not eat any sugar of any kind. So over the last 5 days, I've continued that. And my body is so much happier. And I'm realizing that by the time I see the next doctor next Wednesday, I will have had plenty of time to impact my whole field. And as they test me again, I'm pretty sure between, we have that thing about, do you just pray to God and hope everything's going to be okay? It's like, no, you do your spiritual work, but you do your physical work too. So I've been to bed every night early. I've slept in. I've let myself feel the tiredness from having a virus and that kind of thing. And
you did your mental work too. I mean, you've definitely studied up on all the medications they were trying to give you and the procedures that they were wanting to do. And you've done your homework. So that's your mental component of dealing with it. So you had the physical, which is continuing your exercise, changing your diet, getting your sleep. Then the mental, which was really figuring out and reading up on the quote unquote real world information on what the disease
medical.
And then the emotional work was the diving into the humiliation and the rage.
Oh yeah. Did we talk about the humiliation?
No.
Call some people in my life and share with them what was going on with me, and just having to really not go to humiliation, like really hold myself in a place. Because I could feel that, when we started talking about that hate and the ugliness, like I could feel that part of me feeling ugly in having to talk about it. And I didn't have inside me that there was anyone to blame for this. I feel like an adult. I feel like I made these choices by myself. All these things anyway, whatever. I made all the choices I made by myself, and so did they. So I didn't have any room in me for blame. I just needed to let people know so that they were appropriate in their own lives. And since, as Krista alluded to, there were 4 different things going on with me at the same time, as there are right this second, we're still in this process. It was really hard to communicate that and still stay feeling pretty sexy, right? Like, oh my God, I'm pretty sure this is never going to happen again because I don't feel very sexy right now. And
that's the humiliation shame part. It's like when it's in your sexual organs, all of a sudden it's a whole nother level, because think about it. If someone gets skin cancer, you're like, oh, they have skin cancer. If someone has like cancer in their colon or in their breast or in their vagina, all of a sudden it's in their sexual organs. And I don't know why, but for some reason it just feels different.
It does. And I think it's because, I would say cultural shame. I would say I already had all this shame from all that sort of Me Too stuff. So I could feel it trying to break through, and I could feel myself having the capacity to hold space for myself and say, yeah, we're not going to call this yours. I'm not going to claim this is all mine that I should be ashamed of. Mm-hmm. And I'm also going to still do what I need to do, because the shame prevents me from having integrity. So if I think that it's shameful and gross and weird and bad that I have something that's appearing to be clearing out of my system, if I hold it that way, I'm never going to be able to tell anybody what I need to tell them. I need to share it. I need to say, hey, I need to be responsible here.
And also, on that note of being responsible, I think there's the whole other element that, especially people in our age demographic, has a harder time dealing with, is like the safe sex aspect. It's just, I don't know for you, I'm just going to assume for you, but I know that condoms and all that type of stuff was just kind of coming out, in the 80s with the AIDS epidemic and everything. And it wasn't even as much about wear a condom so you don't get pregnant. It was like wear one so that you don't get a communicable disease. But I feel like our age group didn't really buy into the condom thing. Whereas the younger generations, it's just like, yeah, they just wear a condom because that's what you do. Like, it's more in the culture of that's a way of life. I mean, I know that getting back on the dating scene for myself, it was this whole like, wow, I've been married or in a long-term relationship for so long. I think the last time I wore a condom was maybe when I was like 14. So it was just like it was a foreign.
Chris has not been married since she was 14.
No, I was not, but I was with a long-term boyfriend and we were on birth control. And so we didn't wear condoms. Right. So it just wasn't something that was a part of my life. So at this stage, to be 45 and back on the dating scene and to be like, here, will you put a condom on? It just is like, it feels difficult. And there's fucking shit out there. There are so many diseases. And I'm telling you, the amount of stories I hear, it's insane.
It's insane.
And I think that I want to hammer that point home today, because I think that older, when I say older, I'm talking, I'll say 45 and older. They're just like, oh, he's safe. He told me he was safe. Right. But I don't think anybody's intentionally out to give somebody a disease, right? It's that these diseases, the guys, for one, they don't know they have it because it's, some of the stuff is hidden. It's just latent in them, right? And then in a woman, it's like, boom, and it flares up and it's there. So women, if you're buying into that stupid sentence of, I don't have anything, or, oh, I was tested, it's like, well, show me your fucking test then. Like, do not hand your power over to that man.
Well, the other thing is that it's fine to get tested, but if you're tested on Tuesday and you sleep with someone on Wednesday, it's all over. That test means nothing.
That's what I mean. Like,
you have to be tested monogamous. You have to choose monogamy, then be tested, then you're safe, right? And like you said, there's still things that can be harboring. But you know what, Krista, for instance, so I'll just out one of these things, is with HPV, or what we call genital warts, right? So one of these things, there is no symptomology in both men and women for most part, except if a woman has a flare-up of this, but it could be in her body for 30 years, or the guy she was just with yesterday could have given it to her. It's impossible to know. Mm-hmm. The doctor told me that 95% of anybody who's sexually active across the board have this virus and they're carrying it in their body.
Right.
So this one in particular, but herpes, very different. Very different, and you have to be very much more careful with that one because you can actually tell when you have an outbreak with that, and you really could tell your partner if you wanted to.
But again, there's so much shame around it, right? Because it's on your vagina or on your dick, and so then it's like, well, I don't want to talk about it, and so we don't share. But if it was like a rash on our elbow, we'd be like, oh, I have a rash on my elbow.
Right. And that you shouldn't be touching any of this stuff because it really could infect you, So I think your point is really good. I think your point is, don't give up your power, girls. Like, until you are, you can have sex with whoever you want, but until you're actually really in a partnership and you have both been tested and you're pretty clear you're clean. I've been in relationships in my life where the men have had herpes. And I have been lucky enough to have responsible men in my life who have never passed it on to me. So we definitely used condoms for a long time, and then we made a different choice, and then we were in a longer relationship. So all those things.
Yeah, you work around it. You are in your integrity, and you're just open about it, and there's no judgment. It's just, this is what's happening, and you deal with it.
Right. And when you feel like something's going on in your body, you don't share it. So the problem is some of them are silent. So neither person knows they're happening. They're just silent. So I think our point is really well made at this point.
Wear a condom.
This drum, but I am still on this journey. So there will be things to discover about this. And for the most part, I think what we really wanted to say today is that our statement of enlightenment, sex, and holy is that this is all holy. It's all about learning to be authentic and learning to be integrous. And it might seem weird that we're talking about it out loud, but how on earth are we ever going to get this conversation going if we don't talk about it?
How on earth? I like that thing. How on earth? We can't do anything on earth. We have to bring it up.
Bring it up to heaven.
Well, can we elevate the perspective one more notch? Because, we talked about the physical ailments, and we talked about the kind of the spiritual perspective that we looked at it. But I feel like there was another part of that where we really called in the Christ consciousness. And I don't know how far we want to go with that, but like, if that's going to ruffle any feathers, I guess they're ruffled. But Katherine and I both really work with that energy and the energy of Mary Magdalene, and of calling in an energy that is greater than ourselves to come in and work with us, and to work with our human bodies and our human mind for healing.
Yeah. And we might as well admit it. Both of us are healers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there are very many healers out there that don't believe in other sources of healing beyond what you can see. And we, as healers, we actually depend on guides, and we depend on angels. We depend on other teachers, and we depend on all sorts of wisdom coming to us while we're in the healing process with our clients. So we have to admit, we have to come out of the closet about this too. It's like, it's almost easier to admit that I have a little something going on my vagina than to admit like, hey, we work with this consciousness. So when Krista says the Jesus consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the Mary Magdalene consciousness, that happens to be cultural, and it fits with us and who we are. And that consciousness is really the loving consciousness of the universe. Right. So you can have it in any mode. You can have it in a Buddhist mode, or a Jewish mode, or a Christian mode, or you can have it in even in just a spiritual mode where it doesn't actually have a religious tendency, which was always my way before. But I've had these big experiences that feels like somehow for me, there's the Mary Jesus thing is really, really powerful. And it might just be that it's in my heredity and in my lineage in my DNA. Right. Because we've got to call all this stuff in if we're really going to heal.
Because we know that we are not the healers. We know that we are just the vessel through which these, I'm going to say, more powerful energies are moving through us. And yes, some people are even working with like the Palladian energy and light being energy. So call it what you may, it is accessing something greater than ourselves to come and move through us, so that we may offer more loving, more compassion, and more healing to whoever, whether they're our client or whether there's someone sitting at dinner with us.
Right. And sorry, honey.
That's okay. I just said it's a way of being.
Yes, it's a way of being. And I think the one thing also that we want to say about that too is, as healing professionals, what we want to say is that we bring an energy that Krista was talking about. Doesn't matter what you call that energy, that we all know now, those of us who are on the outside, outer edges of healing philosophies, we know that it's being proven over and over that what heals is the presence of light and love inside your body that you choose. So the healer is the person who brings it to you. You're the one that needs to accept and receive it. So for me during this week, as I did my bedtime intentions, which is simply saying what you want to have happen during the night. So please, may I receive a healing that I don't have to work hard for. That was what I would like. And so I got all these images during the night and all these beautiful ways that it touched me. And it was influenced by what Krista had brought me. And it was influenced by the fact that I could receive what was being brought to me.
Right.
So this is not a one-way street. It's like you have to have two people or two energies. It could be another energy too. It doesn't have to be two people, but two things that come together that are the giving and the receiving. But our bodies have to choose the healing, right?
Absolutely. Because I'm not going to sit at a dinner table and give a healing to someone without them knowing it. I'm going to work in partnership with someone who's asking for it and is open to it, because it takes two people. And the Joe Dispenza book, that's all it's talking about is he's got all these scientific studies that they've, done mind mapping, and when people are in meditation and offering loving energy, and they can track it all. It's all scientifically proven. And so it's fascinating to me that no one out in the world is talking about it. I mean, I know they're talking about it in our world, but I just find it fascinating that it's not more general knowledge. So,
yeah, and it's, these things take years and years. I read somewhere that changing knowledge takes 17 years on the average.
Wow.
So, if you put a book out, so his book came out this year, it'll be 17 years before people really start talking about it.
Well, maybe it'll just be 15, because we will mention his book so many times in our podcast that it will just fly out into the world.
And you guys, we know this has been a little more of a serious session, but we really wanted to let you know that, first of all, it's okay to talk about it. Second of all, it's definitely to be authentic and share it and be integrous with the people that you've been with who are affected. And third of all, to use every system available to you, body, mind, heart, and soul and spirit, to bring your body back into the alignment that it already is. It's just the
holy fuck moment. It's like we use the holiness and the divine literally to heal some fucking energy or some fucking energy.
There you go. And what is fucking about but giving and receiving?
Right.
Right. And that's what we're talking about here, is that healing that's given and the healing that's received is how it happens. Yeah. So I'm very well on my way to my healing journey. I'm working with my doctors. I'm making good choices. I've talked to my people I need to talk to. I've been loved up by my friends. And I'm spending a lot of quiet time resting this week. So
amazing.
All of these things come together. I hope that you will take as exquisite care of yourself when your life, when whatever it is, comes to the surface and needs some attention. Oh, and I didn't mention that I'm, of course, taking care of myself by seeing my trauma therapist again and again to keep clearing the emotional level. So all those things need to be cleared so I can live forward from this point, not backwards into what does this mean I used to be, or what was this about?
Well, I just cannot wait to see where your life goes from here, because I know this has been such a journey for, 40 years, you've been carrying that
since my awareness, probably
since your awareness. And now's the time, like the story is dissipating as we speak. And so I just can't wait to hear all the sex stories coming your way.
I can't either. And the other thing is, all is well and all is forgiven. Because no one in my world, in my field, that's a good place to let your heart live again, is from that place of forgiveness. And we're going to have to do a show and a half on forgiveness, but we're not going to do it today.
For sure.
For you.
Nope. Today's all about the vagina.
It's all about the vagina. So we want to sing you a song on the way out, which is Happy, Healthy Vagina. Will you sing with us? Happy, healthy vagina.
I don't know if I know the song.
I don't know it either. Happy, healthy vagina. Radiant body. Happy, healthy vagina. All right. So radiant body, happy, healthy vaginas to all of you. And if you happen to be a man and are listening to this, happy, healthy sexual life. And we honor and know that you are right here with us in this beautiful place.
Yeah. And they might want a happy, healthy vagina coming their way too. And insane.
I'm pretty sure.
All right. Sure. Bye, everyone. This was fun.
Love you. Bye, everyone.
Love you too. Bye.
We want to connect with all you lovers of sex, spirituality, and all things holy. But unfortunately, you've got to make the first move, baby. That means heading over to holyfuckpodcast.com to find our new episodes and all the juicy deets about Katherine and Krista. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Holy Fuck Podcast to get up-to-date info on our new episodes and current happenings. And if you are seeking a more one-on-one experience, check out Katherine's offerings at katherinemcclellan.com and visit Krista Kim Coaching to see what's shaking in Krista's world. Your spiritual evolution will thank you.